Hi, my name is Alessandro Cangelosi and that's a video tutorial coming from cgcookie.com for Max Cookie. Today I like to talk about the new version of 3ds Max, and it is out on the market from some weeks, and we have some new feature and I like to make an introduction starting from some of it. First of all, I like to talk about something related to the normal usage of 3ds Max and something related to the user interface and the easy of use of the software. First of all, you see that actually I have something different from the basic user interface from 3ds Max, and you see that there it seems that the main menu is different. It is due because in the 3ds Max 2014 we have the enhanced menu. Is a new menu for the user interface renovation we have during the days and months. You can access to it because by default when you install the new version you have the normal main menu, but you can click there over the various configuration of the user interface, and you see that there we have a different workspace, the default with an enhanced menu. If you click over it, we have the new main menu, and it is a graphical menu you see with icons. The distribution of the feature is a little bit different, but more there is more coherence. Command and feature are distributed in a better way, and you see that we have the icons and we have also the various subdivision. They are really interesting, and there are obviously also some more interesting feature. So for example, you see that we have the possibility, for example, to close or to open some section of the menu so we can manage as we like. And another thing is useful to see is that, for example, if we click over this icon, you see that we can transform to, for example, just icons, just text, and icons and text. So we can work in a different way than before, and we can manage really interesting thing. Another interesting feature is that the menu has terable, so I can move the menu and I can move it over the interface. So you see that, for example, I can maintain this one there, and for example, if we have other feature we like to use often, we can, for example, say, okay, I like to have also the create and edit menu, and we like to move it there, and you see we have this other menu and we can manage there. We can, for example, close and have just icons and same there, but it is a new and interesting way to work with a menu in 3ds Max. So you see, it is something new. It is something that needs a little bit of time because you have to understand how to use the new menu, how the new voices are over, and you need time to find the feature and how to find the other commands. Then you can obviously close and all the menu are still there with all the feature. Understanding how to use the new menu is can take a little bit of time, but there is another new feature that can speed up the usage of 3ds Max. You know that a software like that has a lot of commands and we have a lot of feature, and we need to move between mouse, toolbars, and commands and all the other things. An interesting thing we can see inside the user interface is that there we have different color than before for the tabs. You see that this tab is gray and the other tabs, the non-active tabs, are dark gray, and that's really nice change to understand better how we are moving inside the user interface. You see that if we go and modify, this one now is gray and create is dark gray, and this thing is visible in all the panels. You see that, for example, in the preference settings, the active tab is gray and all the other tabs are dark gray, and the same for the rendering. If we go inside the rendering panel, you see that the common is gray and all the others are dark gray. So it's simple, but it's a nice addition. I was talking about the another new interesting feature for the usage of the software, and I'm talking about the search bar. The search bar is really interesting because it is able to search commands inside the user interface, and you don't need to work with the other command. What I mean is, let's think about, for example, we are modeling something inside the viewport. Now let's imagine that we like to create a box. If we like to create a box, we have to go there and create the box. It's simple, obviously, because this one is a really simple feature and it can be found in a really fast way. But there is a new way, and to access to the search you have to press the X key, and you see that there it is opening a menu. Now we have just to write something, and we like to create box. You see that I wrote just B, and it is finding all the command with a B. If I continue, you see that we have, for example, the bomb, the boolean, the box, and for example we can say box. You see that the command is chosen, and we can start working with this one. Okay, we done the modeling. If we like, for example, to use a band modifier, we have just to say band, and we have the band modifier. So it is really faster to do something like that, because we have everything inside the viewport. Let's say that we have some more models and we like to do the isolation. It's really simple. The isolation is we select the objects and we click over isolate, but obviously now we can do the same there. We can write isolate selection, and that's all. So you see, it's a different way to work. Let's say that, for example, we like to use another command, for example the layers, and you see that we have the layers there. Everything can be accessed from the menu. You see that, for example, there we are using just the A key, and it's finding all the commands with the A, and you can do a lot of stuff, and you can obviously just press over the viewport and you have no more access to the search bar. But it is really nice, a really nice addition. So something more related to the usage there of the user interface. There is a really fast way to move between the various viewports. You know that we have there the various viewports. We can go and maximize on one viewport. You know that we have the viewport layout there to create some different configuration for the layout. But there is a fast way to move between the other viewport. You can press, for example, the shortcut on the keyboard to call, for example, the front or something like that. Or you can exit from this one, select the front and go to maximize. But there is a new way, and this way is you have just to press the Windows logo key and press the Shift key, and you see that you can use the mouse, or you can directly continue to use the Shift key to move on another viewport, and you see that it says where is the viewport. In this case, it says that this one is the top on the left, this one is the top on the right, bottom on the right, and bottom on the left. The left and the right. And we can, for example, choose this one, and we stay in the top, and again we can go back to the perspective. Obviously, also this one is a simple addition, but that nice feature are useful to speed up the workflow and to be faster working with 3ds Max. So that's something related to the viewport and the user interface. And I like to move to something else, talking about some new feature. Something is related to the gamma correction manipulation. So let's go in the preferences, then we go in the gamma LUT, and you see that there is something less than before. We have no more access there to the manipulation of the gamma, so automatically the gamma is set to 2.2 for the correction, you see, so automatically it is set to on. So everything is done automatically, and also when you are trying to save an image, so let's go there and let's say we save an image, you see that there it is still set in a different way. We have the automatic and we have the override where we can put the gamma. In this case the gamma is manipulated manually or automatically, and when it is automatically, 3ds Max is managing in the right way with a 2.2 gamma correction. But in case you are using, for example, a bitmap with no standard gamma, you have to set the gamma manually. It is important when you, for example, needs to work with bump map or normal maps, so where you need to work with a pixel in a more complex way. But in this way there are less problems understanding how to manage everything for the basic users, because everything is done by 3ds Max by default. Then let's talk, for example, about particle flow. Particle flow has some new feature, and we talked about it in the past tutorial using the new edition for M particles in 3013 with the extension. But in 2014 we have PM particles, and we have also the advanced data manipulation. We are talking about the box number 2 and the box number 3 that before was sold separately for 3ds Max. What I mean is, let's select all the objects there. We can remove, and another interesting thing is to know that the Nitrous viewport is really faster than before, also working with the particles. So let's go in the particle system, particle flow, and you see that everything seems as before. I'm scaling the viewport there, but we have some new nodes and operator. You see that we have more stuff than before. Obviously, if we are talking about the particles, everything is working as before. Let's say that we work with something like that, and we add a force just to see how it is faster than before. Let's go for a gravity, and you know that's the particles. Let's say that we have the cube, and the viewport we have the geometry, and we have also a force by list, and we can add the gravity. Okay, so see, the animation is really simple. Let's say that the particles will be emitted until last frame. We see 100% of particles, and let's say that we have 20,000 particles. So you see that we have a lot of particles, but it is moving really fast. Let's go back in the particle view, and let's give more speed to the particles. Let's do, you see that is reacting in real time and with the divergence, and everything is done in a really fast way. Let's go there, and you see that everything is moving with a realistic viewport in real time, and that's really nice, because you can manage more complex scene in a better way. Let's try to exaggerate 200,000, and you see that it is still moving really fast. Obviously we can go add the shaded mode to have no shadows, but you see that the speed is always really fast. And that means that in viewport we can start to talk about a really big amount of particles. So we are talking about 2 million particles, but it is still fast, and we can try to exaggerate a lot. let's say that the particles are more little, and we have differences between the scaling. Now we are talking about 20 million particles. Let's see if we have to set. We have obviously to set the upper limit, so we were not using all the particles. Now we are working with all the particles, but you see now it moves. With the previous version, it was really difficult to have something like that inside the viewport. Let's go back to a different amount of particles, something more usable. Okay, and that's really nice. So this is something related to the nitrous and the particle flow, but it is interesting to know that now particle flow has something new, and it's talking about the M particles. The M particles are really powerful. We are talking about dynamic particles with a lot of feature. We'll do maybe a citizen tutorial series to understand how to use this kind of particles. But first of all, you see that actually it seems to have a basic particle flow. We can say new, but let's move there. New particle system and particle flow. Let's pick the previous one. We can remove, and we have just this one. You see that we have something different. We have a particle system done using boxes, and we saw something like that related to the other particles. And this is interesting because we are talking now about a particle system with some new powerful feature. We can, for example, use a teapot, and then we can go back inside there. We can say shape instance, and it will use our teapot. We can scale it, we can have some variation, but we have still dynamic particles. We can go there, and you see that there we have, for example, the shape collision. Actually it is using a box, but we can say also to use the convex hull, and you see that the collision are different than before and are all obviously more precise. The MP word is working to manipulate the dynamic properties there. You see that we have the gravity, we have the ground collision. So if we know to have no ground collision, there is no ground, and we have to add the ground manually. We have, you see, a lot of properties, and we have the possibility to cache the simulation. We saw something like that in a previous tutorial. We have, for example, the possibility to work with a lot of particles. Let's say, for example, I'm changing the grid to have more particles inside the viewport. In this case, then we can play, and you see that the particles are colliding, and it is nice to see what we can do now with M particles. We have a complete access to M particles. We have complete access to the cache manipulator, and for example, obviously there we are talking about something related to the M particles. So we have the cache system, but if you like, now we have some operator, and we can use, you see, the cache disk, the cache selective. So for example, the cache disk gives us the possibility to cache the entire simulation to the HD, so you can move directly just the simulation between different workstation and different artists. So you have not to calculate over the other PCM workstation again the simulation. Then we were talking about the advanced manipulation. So let's pick everything and let's delete, and we can, let's say, P, and you see clean plea flow. And then we can create a new particle flow. So particle flow source. Okay. Then let's erase the old event. That's the new event. And let's say that we have something new. And to use the advanced data manipulation, you have the data operator, this one, but obviously you have more data too. And that's really powerful because it gives us the possibility to access to more sub-operator, to access to advanced information and manipulation for the particles. So for example, let's add this one, and you see that there we have just something, and something simple is just edit data flow. And you see that it is opening another interface where we have other operators, and we have something you see useful to access to more deeper feature and behavior of the particle. Obviously we'll see in a deeper citizen tutorial how to use the data operator on a particle system. Then don't save. Yes, okay. So then another interesting thing is the addition of Populate. Populate is a new tool for character animation and more related to something similar to a crowd simulation. It is not a complete cloud system, but it is something similar. So we have the possibility to animate using Populate, and Populate gives us the possibility to control the animation of more staff and people. And something that can be done really simple is using the Populate menu there over the ribbon tool, and you see that there we have all the command. The first thing we have to do is to create the flow. The flow is the flow of people working. So we have to press over the create flow, and then we have the possibility to create the flow over the viewport. I just changed the configuration of the viewport to have the Populate over there with the ribbon. Let's go to customize using the old menu just to speed up, and let's say the scaling, so unit measure, we are talking in meters, so let's zoom a little bit out. We were saying to use the create, and you see that we have there something. Let's say that the width of the flow is just 2, and you see that it is creating something. Let's press the right mouse button, and we have this tool, the flow. Then we have the possibility to go there and close. You see that we have the lanes, and we can decide the scaling and the line spacing between the lanes of moving. We have the possibility to decide density globally for the people, and we can say, you see, to add more people with more samples and with more gender. And back there you see that we have the possibility to add more frames to the simulation, but let's say that 300 is nice, and let's say simulate. It is calculating and adding the people and the character over the simulation, and you see that there we have the people simulated. Obviously now it is really simple. We can add more density, we can change, you see, in the movement, for example, and we can simulate again, and it is reworking with a new density with more people. So you see that everything is done in real time. The characters are loadable from a library, or can be added using an external library from the Autodesk. You see that we have the possibility to use just the stick figure, so this fast in viewport. We can add the custom crowd skin or the iris mesh. Obviously in this case you need the iris mesh loaded. Something interesting is also, for example, adding the area where we can add people staying on the ground there. So let's move, for example, this one, and there we have some guys. Let's simulate the game. And you see that we have some guys and some female there. And that's an idle area. So we have just people say and doing nothing, or for example talking or moving. So we have people working full character tool, to animate and manipulate characters directly inside the viewport, and we can obviously access to the to this area, and we can manipulate, and we can change also the flow. So let's go there. You see that we have the flow. We can obviously move it and change it, or we can pick a point and we can change it. We can pick also a segment and we can manually change it. If obviously this one is bigger, we can have obviously the minimum space between the guys there is 1 meter, but if we have more, we can simulate and we can have more people. Now we are creating a little bit of problem because okay, it is for any reason it is crashed, but it's not a problem. Let's see, we can create from zero again, but it's just to understand that we have the possibility to work with something like that. So that's a nice addition to the character tools. There are some nice addition to the rendering too. So let's create simple plane with a view, and let's use Mintooray as rendering engine, and then let's skylight to the viewport. Let's go in realistic view, and we can use a texture for this one. And let's use an HDR map. So bitmap, and we go inside the 3ds Max maps HDR, and let's go with this one. Let's say okay and okay. And let's add as map there. So it is using this map to illuminate the scene. And first of all, a really interesting thing is that we are using the HDR map to simulate the illumination also inside the viewport. So this one is the right illumination coming from this point of view there, and that's really interesting. Let's give, for example, to this one a chrome material, chrome, and let's do it using an Arcan design. We use the basic template using the chrome, and we can assign it. Okay, so that's our, and the plane can be something simple. Let's call it plane. An Arcan design, with no reflectivity, so just a basic tool. And you see that the illumination is really nice and really useful because it is really similar to the real one, and it is just a viewport. And when we go to render now inside the Mentoray, we have a nice addition, and we are talking about the different way to sample. So there is a unified system to simulate the illumination. We have also the old one, and we have the rasterizer as before, and we have the new one. But a new nice addition is the skylight that will use the image-based lighting. Before we had Final Gather, we can render this image, and it is trying to simulate the illumination using the HDR. Obviously, we can use a more precise illumination using more point for Final Gathering, but it is still not so precise. Now we have the possibility to use directly the illumination using the IBL. So it is using the image we have to simulate the right lighting. And in this case, obviously, this time is not so simple to see the differences, but it is more accurate than the other tools we used before, and it is a really better way to simulate the illumination done with the skylight inside the viewport. For example, we have the possibility also to take care about the transparency of the material. So in this case, if we go, for example, for a glass physical, it will take care about the transparency tool, and you see that it's really an high quality rendering than using the HDR map. And that's a simple feature for the rendering, but it can give us a higher quality better than before. Let's render with the previous version. Obviously, depending on the case, we can have a more precise or less precise representation, but in this case it's visible. That's the normal skylight, and that's the skylight done with the image-based lighting. You see that the shadows is more precise now because it is taking care about the transparency. Another interesting thing is that we can use the illumination and the calculation done using the unified sample. And the unified sample gives us the possibility to control in a better way and manipulating the parameters for the retracer with both the anti-alias, and to have the possibility to have also the calculation of the motion blur with a good quality. And it is usually faster than the standard kind of render. And you see that there we have essentially no more the minimum and the maximum sample for the anti-alias, but we have the quality level, and then we have the minimum and the maximum. In this way we have the possibility to speed up the rendering, and we can try, for example, to render this one. We had a rendering in 8 seconds in total. That's the classic one with a 1 and 4. Maybe the speed this time is the same, but the quality can be different than before. But you see that now we have still 1 second more. This one is the best because we can use an higher or lower quality, and the quality can have the possibility to give us the maximum quality for the rendering. Let's try to move there. If we go, for example, for 5, and we render just one area and render, obviously it will be slower than before, but the quality will be higher. Let's try to see if we have the possibility to see the differences, and it is a little bit cleaner than before, and we can go higher. 20 is the maximum level of quality for the sampling, and you see that the speed is not bad, and the quality can be really high in the rendering to remove the noises more than possible. And you have to play then with the minimum and maximum parameters, and the minimum and maximum parameters can have a really different settings, so it works in a different way than the minimum and maximum for the classic way of rendering. So you have to play a little bit, and maybe we can prepare some tutorials related to how to use the new rendering feature in 2014. Let's see another simple new feature, and this time it is related to the air and fuel system. It is just something not so big, but it can give us a possibility to have a better control over the fuel. You see that there we have a simple basic configuration for the air and fuel, and we have the various parameters there, and you know, we have the normal, let's say 50, just to give something different, you see, but there we are talking about the normal feature for the various manipulation. Now we have a more interesting feature there inside the clamping. Let's start to add the clamp, let's say 10, and we have maybe more, 25. Okay, you see that we have the clamp, and we have the possibility to use the shuffle. The shuffle gives us the possibility to control, let's say maybe 100. Okay, you see that are moving, and then we have the possibility to rotate, and we can obviously also use the colors and the randomization, flatten something. But the interesting thing is that you see we can use this parameter to create a little bit of more chaos over the clamps, and without this one we have just the usual clamps, but in this case you see we can manipulate in a better way to give more control over the clamping. It is also, this one is a simple feature, but it is really nice. We have something more cosmetics, and for example when we have the autosave there in the customized preferences, you see that file there, we have the auto file saving, and when we have the auto file we have the possibility to have the breaking. So you see sometimes it can be really slow when it is making the autosave. When it is making the autosave there, you will see written autosave in progress, press ESC to cancel. So if you like to stop the autosaving, you can just press the ESC key and it will be blocked, and you can continue to work without problems. There is another interesting feature, and I'm talking about the perspective match. So let's see if we have, maybe we check just this one and then we can close. Let's see if we have, for example, something that can be used to play with the feature. Let's say configure viewport background. Let's choose a use file, match bitmap, load file, and let's see if we have a background image that can be used. Maps, let's say background. For example, this one can be a simple, but we can use it. Okay, so you see that's our image, and we know that to create the perspective matching, we can do it manually, we can use the older tool, but this time now we have the perspective match and it is a new addition, and it is more powerful than the previous one. So to use it, we have just to go in the utility panel, and we have perspective match, and that's the utility there. You have just to press the show vanishing points, and you see that you have some lines. Those lines are the axis that will be useful to find the way to create the perspective matching. So let's start to work with the x-axis. So let's say that this one will be aligned to there to find the right matching. There we have not so much lines because the image is not so nice, but you see I'm trying to align to the point visible, and then for example we can use this one for the matching, and let's try to use this one too for the matching, and then we need this one. The problem is that over this image we have not so nice matching, but you see that the plane is aligned to the interior of the object we have inside the image. Then we can, for example, hide, and you see that it seems well aligned. We can then create, for example, a teapot, and the teapot seems to stay inside the objects we have inside the viewport. So you see it's really simple to be used. We can decide if we like to have the 3 box axes, or you have just the x and the y, the x and the z, or the y and the z. So you can understand how to use. So you can decide based on the photo you have which points you have to use and which points are not useful. Then you know, there you have some more feature, and you can use the perspective, or you can use a free camera. So you see that we done the matching using the perspective, and you can use just the free camera to do the matching. We have the possibility to use the peak anchor point, and this one gives us the possibility to have an anchor for the perspective matching. So you can use an object as the anchor, and the match will use the distance of the rotation to this object as the camera pivot, and that's another feature you can use. Or we have the possibility to move the parameters there. You see, moving over the horizontal axis, the y-axis, and the distance to stay more near. In this case, for example, can be interesting to use less distance, and you see it seems matching more and more in a better way. So that's really nice. So that's another new feature for 2014. There are some minor tweaks and feature that we'll see maybe in future tutorial. You see, this version has not so much new features, something new stuff and some new addition and some working over the speed up and the user interface, but there are a lot of bug fixes, and it has less bugs, it's more stable and faster than the previous version. So it is nice new version for 3ds Max. So for the moment that's all, and I hope to see you back on Max Cookie to check for new tutorial coming from cgcookie.com. Bye.